Maria woke up before dawn as she always did. The sun had not yet risen, and the streets of her small town were still quiet. She moved carefully, not wanting to wake her youngest child, who was still fast asleep. The little kitchen smelled faintly of last night's bread, and Maria quickly prepared a simple breakfast of eggs and toast. Her hands were rough from years of hard work, but she handled each task with care. Every morning was the same, yet Maria never complained. She believed in starting the day with a clear mind and a strong heart. After breakfast, she helped her children get ready for school. Her daughter, Lila, was exceptionally bright, always asking questions about the world, while her younger son was quieter, content to follow along without asking much. Maria packed their bags, ensuring they had enough to eat and that their uniforms were neat. As she watched them leave for the day, a mix of pride and worry filled her heart. She wished she could provide more, but she knew her life was limited by the work she could find. Maria's workday was long and exhausting. She cleaned a large house for a family who often treated her with indifference. The floors, windows, and counters all needed attention, and Maria moved swiftly from room to room. Her back ached, and her feet were sore, but she did not mind. She believed that work was a way to maintain dignity and provide for her children. Even in the hardest moments, she held on to hope that better days would come. The townspeople respected Maria for her honesty and hard work. She had never been involved in trouble or scandal, and her neighbors often spoke highly of her. Yet, in a town where wealth and power meant more than truth, Maria's simplicity made her vulnerable. She had seen others fall victim to unfair treatment, and she feared the same could happen to her. Still, she trusted that if she remained honest and kind, she could navigate the challenges ahead. Lila often sat in the corner of the living room, reading books while Maria worked. Her curiosity and intelligence amazed everyone who met her. She had a natural gift for understanding rules and patterns, and she absorbed information like a sponge. Maria sometimes worried that the world would not be kind to someone like Lila, someone who was too smart for her humble surroundings. But she also knew that Lila's brilliance could be the key to a brighter future. As Maria finished her morning chores, she reflected on how much she relied on Lila's help. Not only did her daughter excel in school, but she also understood the world in ways Maria never could. Lila had a mind for strategy, a sense of justice, and a deep empathy for others. Maria often marveled at how her daughter could solve problems with a clarity that adults sometimes lacked. She felt lucky to have such a child, even though the world outside their home could be harsh and unforgiving. One afternoon, while Maria was dusting the furniture in the main hall, a knock came at the door. She opened it to find a tall man in a judge's robe standing with a stern expression. Maria's heart skipped a beat. She had heard stories about this judge. He was known to be strict, powerful, and sometimes unfair. His presence was intimidating, and Maria felt a flicker of fear. The judge introduced himself with a formal tone and said he needed to speak with the homeowner. Maria explained politely that the family was not home and that she was just the maid. He nodded slowly and looked around the house with sharp eyes. Maria sensed that something was not right. There was a coldness in his gaze, a sense that he thought he could manipulate her. She kept her composure, knowing that any sign of weakness could be dangerous. As the judge left, Maria felt a wave of unease. She could not shake the feeling that he had plans she could not understand. She returned to her chores but worked more slowly, her mind preoccupied. She worried not just for herself but for Lila and her son. She knew that the safety of her children depended on her ability to stay alert and careful. The thought of danger lurking in the shadows made her heart heavy. Evening came and Maria prepared dinner. Lila asked about her day, her bright eyes full of curiosity. Maria smiled, hiding her concern, and spoke about ordinary things. School, neighbors, small joys. She did not want her daughter to sense the worry she felt. After dinner, they sat together reading and talking. Maria cherished these moments of peace and connection. In these times, she could almost forget the challenges outside their home. Before bed, Maria reflected on her life. She had faced hardships, worked tirelessly, and sacrificed for her children. She knew that the world could be cruel to those without power or wealth. But she also believed in resilience, in the quiet strength of honesty and hard work. She thought of Lila and hoped that one day, her daughter's intelligence and sense of justice would allow her to change their lives. Maria fell asleep with a mixture of fatigue and hope, ready to face another day. Little did Maria know, her simple life was about to collide with a world she had never imagined. A world of power, influence, and deception was slowly closing in. But she also did not know that Lila's extraordinary mind would soon become their greatest shield. For now, Maria remained unaware of the storm on the horizon, but she held tightly to her core belief that courage, honesty, and love could guide them through anything. The next morning, Maria woke with a sense of unease that she could not shake. The judge's visit from yesterday lingered in her mind like a shadow. She tried to focus on her routine, cleaning and tidying the large house as she always did, but every sound, every step, made her glance nervously toward the door. She could not explain why, but she felt that something more was coming. Meanwhile, the judge, Mr. Reynolds, was in his office, reviewing papers and files. He was a man who enjoyed power more than justice. When he remembered Maria, a simple maid who worked quietly in a house he occasionally visited for social functions, he smirked. He had heard rumors from other wealthy acquaintances that she was trustworthy, polite, and quiet. That was exactly the kind of person he thought would be easy to manipulate. In his mind, she was a tool, an object he could use to satisfy his own selfish interests. Reynolds began to plan. He had recently been involved in a dispute over property, and an opportunity to prove his cleverness had presented itself. He wanted to frame someone for a crime, make it seem convincing, and enhance his own reputation in the process. His mind immediately went to Maria. How simple, how unsuspecting she seemed. He imagined how easy it would be to set her up, create a false story, and have everyone believe it. He did not consider her courage, her intelligence, or the fact that her family might protect her in ways he could not imagine. Maria went about her work, unaware of the plotting that had begun. She noticed small things in the house that seemed slightly out of place. Items she had cleaned the day before now shifted, papers not in their usual order. She felt a quiet tension in the air. Something was wrong. But who would believe a maid, a woman of humble means? She shook her head and focused on the floors, telling herself to keep calm, to work diligently and avoid trouble. The judge decided to plant evidence, a small item of value that he claimed had gone missing from the house. It was subtle, just enough to make it believable that Maria might have taken it. He arranged for it to be found near her belongings, confident that the homeowners would immediately suspect her. In his mind, it was perfect, a flawless plan that would go unnoticed until it was too late. He never imagined that Maria, or her family, could challenge him. As the days passed, Maria began to feel the weight of unseen eyes watching her. Neighbors whispered about the judge's visit, and the household seemed more tense than usual. The family she worked for did not directly accuse her, but their glances and hushed conversations made her anxious. She continued to work hard, careful with every step, every action, but the fear of being accused of something she had not done gnawed at her. At home, Maria shared her unease with Lila. Her daughter listened carefully, her bright eyes focused and alert. Maria explained the events, the oddities in the house, and her fear that someone might be trying to set her up. Lila did not panic. Instead, she began to ask detailed questions, gathering information, forming ideas. Maria watched in awe as her daughter, even at a young age, started to see the problem clearly. Lila suggested keeping notes, observing who came and went, and making mental records of events. She spoke in a calm and practical tone that helped Maria feel less helpless. Lila also began to research quietly. She looked up legal procedures, past cases, and ways people could be falsely accused. She studied every detail she could find, teaching herself the language and logic of the law in the evenings while her brother slept. She understood that knowledge was power, that preparation could prevent injustice. Maria could only marvel at her daughter's determination and insight. One afternoon, Reynolds made his move. He instructed an associate to report the missing item to the homeowners, insinuating that Maria had taken it. The family, unsure but uneasy, confronted her with suspicion. Maria was shocked and scared. She could not believe what was happening. The accusation was so sudden, so unexpected, that her mind struggled to process it. Yet, she remained calm, insisting that she had done nothing wrong. Lila, who had anticipated this, stepped forward. She spoke with a confidence and clarity that left the homeowners surprised. She explained that her mother had always been honest and that the situation required investigation, not immediate judgment. She suggested they examine the evidence carefully, trace the timeline, and question witnesses before drawing conclusions. Her calm reasoning helped to ease some of the tension, though the shadow of doubt still lingered. Reynolds watched from a distance, pleased with the unfolding drama. He believed he had created a perfect trap, and he expected Maria to crumble. But he had underestimated Lila. The young girl began collecting information methodically, writing down events, noting who had been in the house, and preparing to defend her mother with facts. She had a strategy that Reynolds could not see, a plan that would soon turn the situation around. Maria felt a mix of fear and relief. Fear because of the serious danger posed by the judge's manipulation, and relief because of Lila's presence, intelligence, and courage. She realized that no matter how powerful the opposition, the truth and careful reasoning could protect them. She could not solve the problem alone, but with Lila, she had hope. The days grew tense as the investigation unfolded. Reynolds continued to watch, confident that his plan would succeed. Maria worked quietly, careful to avoid any mistakes. Lila stayed alert, documenting everything, asking questions, and thinking several steps ahead. Each night, they discussed the events, planning their next moves, and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. Through it all, Maria maintained her dignity and composure. She did not lash out or panic. She trusted in her daughter's abilities and in the principle that truth, when carefully presented, could shine through. She reminded herself that courage was not the absence of fear but the ability to act despite it. Every day she faced the possibility of injustice, but she also faced it with unwavering honesty. Meanwhile, Lila's mind worked like a machine. She anticipated what the judge might do next, considered every possible accusation, and prepared evidence to counter it. She spoke to the household members in calm, rational ways, subtly uncovering details that contradicted the judge's plan. She built a chain of reasoning so strong that it became difficult for anyone to believe the false accusation without scrutiny. Reynolds, unaware of Lila's meticulous planning, began to grow impatient. He expected the trap to ensnare Maria quickly, but nothing seemed to happen. The more he tried to control events, the more complicated the situation became. His confidence began to waver, though he did not yet understand why. Lila's quiet determination and careful observation were slowly unraveling his scheme. The turning point came when Lila uncovered a small but critical piece of evidence that directly contradicted the judge's setup. She realized that with careful presentation, she could expose the plot and protect her mother from false blame. She worked late into the night, organizing her findings, anticipating questions, and ensuring that every statement was backed by facts. Maria watched, filled with pride and awe at the young prodigy she had raised. As part 2 of the story closed, the tension had reached its peak. Maria remained calm and strong, guided by love and trust in her daughter. Lila had begun to take control of the situation, using intelligence, strategy, and careful planning to protect her family. The judge's confidence was waning, though he had yet to realize the full scope of Lila's capabilities. The story was no longer just about a simple maid. It was about courage, intelligence, and the slow unraveling of a carefully laid trap. Lila had spent the past few days observing everything carefully. Every detail mattered, and she noticed things that others overlooked. The way the judge's associate handled certain documents, the way the homeowners reacted to questions, and even the smallest changes in the house's arrangement. All of it told her a story. Lila's mind worked quickly, connecting patterns and possibilities, and she began to see how the trap had been laid out. She spent her evenings studying legal texts she had collected over time. Though she was still young, Lila understood the law better than many adults in her town. She knew the importance of evidence, timelines, and credibility. Each night, she sat at the small wooden table in their modest home, writing notes, planning steps, and rehearsing what she would do if accusations were made public. Maria watched silently, amazed at her daughter's focus and clarity. She knew that without Lila, they would be powerless against the judge's plan. One afternoon, Lila decided to test the responses of the household staff and the homeowners. She asked questions casually, pretending to be curious about household routines and procedures. Her questions were subtle, but they revealed inconsistencies in the story the judge wanted people to believe. Lila made careful mental notes, realizing that the planted item, the so-called missing object, had been moved intentionally. The more she learned, the clearer it became that the accusation against her mother was a manipulation meant to create panic and fear. Maria continued her work as usual, unaware of every small discovery Lila made. She cleaned floors, polished windows, and organized shelves with care, keeping her head down. But Lila's quiet efforts began to change the atmosphere in the house. She spoke with certain staff members, subtly gaining their trust and asking them to recall events precisely. She wrote down their statements, ensuring that everything was documented clearly. Lila was building a web of truth that would be impossible for the judge to unravel. The judge, confident in his plan, made another move. He requested a formal report from the homeowners, expecting them to accuse Maria officially. He believed that by involving paperwork and the threat of authority, Maria would break under pressure. But the young girl anticipated this. She had already collected statements from witnesses, and she had noted the exact timeline of events. Lila was ready to counter any claim with facts, logic, and proof. That evening, Maria and Lila sat together at the dinner table. Lila explained to her mother the steps she had taken. She spoke calmly, pointing out what had been moved, who had seen it, and how the situation could be defended. Maria listened, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. She had always believed in honesty, but she realized that knowledge and preparation were just as important. Lila had the courage to face injustice head-on, and Maria knew they were not alone in this struggle. Over the next few days, Lila continued her investigation. She spent hours in the local library, reading old case files and learning how judges and courts had dealt with false accusations in the past. She began to understand not only the rules but also the strategies that could be used to protect her mother. Her confidence grew, and she started to feel that justice could be achieved even in the face of power and corruption. Maria, meanwhile, tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. She worked diligently, keeping her routine as if nothing were wrong. But she felt the tension every time she walked through the house. She worried about the judge's influence, about how easily people could be misled. Still, she trusted Lila's instincts and intelligence. She knew that the young girl was capable of remarkable things, even in a world that often underestimated her. One afternoon, Lila approached the homeowners quietly. She presented her findings in a logical, organized manner. She explained the inconsistencies, the timeline, and the small details that proved Maria's innocence. She spoke with clarity and calm authority, surprising everyone who listened. Even the skeptical staff could not argue with her reasoning. Lila had a way of making the truth visible, undeniable, and simple to understand. The homeowners were impressed. They realized that Maria had been unjustly suspected and that the judge's plan was deceptive. They promised to support Maria and to verify all details before making any further claims. Lila's careful preparation had already started to turn the tide. The young girl had transformed a frightening situation into a manageable one, showing that intelligence and strategy could protect even those without wealth or influence. Meanwhile, the judge was growing impatient. He expected immediate results, the humiliation of Maria, and the confirmation of his trap. But nothing had gone according to his plan. Lila's intervention had created delays, questions, and doubt. He could not understand how a simple maid, guided by a young girl, had become so difficult to ensnare. His confidence was shaken, though he still tried to maintain an air of authority. Lila did not stop. She prepared for the next stage, anticipating legal actions that the judge might attempt. She documented every conversation, every movement, and every piece of evidence. She even made notes about the judge's patterns, predicting how he would react to challenges. Her mind was sharp, and she moved carefully, knowing that any misstep could put her mother at risk. Maria watched in admiration, realizing that her daughter's intellect was their strongest defense. The tension in the household was palpable. Staff members whispered, the homeowners grew cautious, and Maria's fear was always present. But Lila's quiet strength became a beacon. She reassured her mother, reminding her that preparation, evidence, and honesty were powerful tools. Together, they began to face the situation with a sense of control, despite the looming threat of the judge's influence. As the week progressed, Lila found a crucial piece of evidence, a hidden letter that revealed the judge's intent. It confirmed that the missing item had been deliberately placed to frame Maria. She immediately brought this to her mother and discussed how it could be used to confront the situation legally. Maria felt a surge of hope. With this evidence, they could finally show the truth and protect themselves from the judge's manipulation. The turning point approached. Lila prepared a clear, detailed report for the homeowners, showing the sequence of events, witness statements, and the newly discovered letter. She explained how everything pointed to a deliberate scheme by the judge. The homeowners, shocked by the clarity of the evidence, began to question the judge's motives. They realized that Maria had been wrongly suspected and that a young girl had outsmarted a powerful figure. Maria could hardly believe what she was seeing. Her daughter, the quiet girl who often sat reading in the corner, had become their strongest defender. Lila's intelligence, diligence, and courage had uncovered the truth and given them a chance to fight back. Maria felt a mix of relief, pride, and renewed hope for the future. Meanwhile, the judge, unaware of the full extent of Lila's actions, began to sense that things were slipping out of his control. His plan, once so confident and calculated, was starting to crumble. The more he tried to manipulate events, the more apparent it became that Maria and Lila were prepared. He had underestimated the power of intelligence, strategy, and determination, and it was becoming painfully clear. By the end of part 3, the stage was set for a dramatic confrontation. Maria remained strong and composed, relying on her daughter's brilliance to guide them. Lila had gathered evidence, analyzed the judge's tactics, and prepared a plan to confront the deception. The simple maid's life had been thrown into chaos, but with the courage and legal talent of her daughter, she was no longer powerless. The battle for justice was just beginning, and the odds were starting to shift in their favor. Lila had prepared herself for the most important step yet. The evidence she had collected, the timelines she had reconstructed, and the witness statements she had organized were ready to be presented. She knew that the next move was crucial. If she made even a small mistake, her mother could be unfairly blamed, and the judge could continue his plan. But Lila was confident. She had worked tirelessly, and she knew the truth was on their side. Maria stood beside her daughter, trying to calm her racing heart. She had seen Lila grow in these past few days, from a bright, curious girl into a strategic mind capable of navigating even the most complicated situations. Maria trusted her daughter completely, knowing that Lila would do everything possible to protect them. Still, she could not help but feel a twinge of fear. The judge was powerful, and the world often favored the wealthy and influential over honesty and hard work. When they entered the small meeting room in the homeowner's office, the tension was palpable. The homeowners were already there, along with a few staff members who had been witnesses to the events. The judge, as expected, was there too, sitting with an air of authority, convinced that his plan was unfolding perfectly. He did not yet realize that the young girl he had underestimated was about to turn the situation upside down. Lila spoke first. Her voice was calm and steady, carrying authority beyond her years. She presented her findings step by step, carefully explaining the timeline, the inconsistencies, and the evidence she had discovered. She pointed out how the missing item had been moved intentionally and presented the letter that revealed the judge's manipulation. Every statement she made was backed by facts, and she ensured that the witnesses confirmed the details. The homeowners listened, surprised by the clarity and depth of her understanding. The judge's expression shifted. He had expected Maria to struggle, to stumble, or to plead helplessly. Instead, the young girl's logic and preparation left him momentarily speechless. He tried to interrupt, to assert his authority, but Lila anticipated this. She had prepared counterpoints and calmly addressed every objection. Her composure and intelligence were undeniable, and even the judge could not dismiss her. Maria watched with awe as her daughter dismantled the trap piece by piece. Every detail that the judge had counted on to create doubt and fear was explained clearly, every misleading insinuation corrected. Lila had turned the situation from one of potential disaster into one of clarity and justice. The homeowners were convinced, the staff reassured, and Maria felt her fear begin to melt away. The judge attempted to regain control. He raised his voice, trying to intimidate the group and assert that his reputation and authority should outweigh the evidence presented by a young girl. But Lila remained unshaken. She explained that honesty and truth could not be measured by rank or title. Her reasoning was simple yet powerful, demonstrating that facts, evidence, and careful observation mattered more than arrogance and power. The judge's tactics began to falter, and those present could see the cracks in his plan. Witnesses who had been hesitant before now stepped forward, confirming Lila's account. They described what they had seen, how the item had been placed, and the timing of events. Each statement reinforced Lila's argument, and it became clear that the accusation against Maria was baseless. The judge's confidence wavered further as the weight of truth pressed against his carefully constructed scheme. Maria felt a mix of relief and pride. She had always believed in honesty, but she now saw that knowledge and preparation could transform even the most threatening situation. Lila's courage and intelligence had given them a fighting chance. The simple maid, once vulnerable and afraid, now stood strong because of her daughter's brilliance. The homeowners, convinced by the evidence, decided to take action to protect Maria. They wrote a formal statement affirming her honesty and recounting the sequence of events. They emphasized that any attempts to accuse her were unfounded and that the judge's influence should not override the facts. Lila had guided them through every step, ensuring that their statements were clear, consistent, and backed by evidence. The judge, realizing that his plan was collapsing, tried one last tactic. He attempted to discredit Lila, arguing that she was too young and inexperienced to understand the situation fully. But Lila responded with calm confidence. She explained that her research, careful documentation, and witness statements provided a clear and undeniable account of events. Her reasoning was logical and persuasive, leaving no room for doubt. The judge's objections fell flat. By the end of the meeting, it was clear who held the moral high ground. Lila had transformed a moment of fear and potential injustice into one of truth and accountability. The homeowners and staff recognized the bravery and intelligence of the young girl, and Maria felt an overwhelming sense of pride and gratitude. She realized that Lila's abilities were more than just a gift. They were a shield, a way to navigate a world that could sometimes be cruel and unfair. The judge left the room with his plan exposed, his authority diminished, and his manipulation revealed. He had underestimated the power of careful observation, preparation, and intelligence. Lila had shown that even the youngest and seemingly powerless could challenge authority when armed with knowledge and courage. Maria, standing beside her daughter, felt a deep sense of relief. The danger had not passed entirely, but they had proven that truth and justice could prevail against deception. That evening, at home, Maria and Lila sat together quietly. Maria spoke softly, expressing her pride in her daughter's bravery and intelligence. She acknowledged the risk Lila had taken and the clarity with which she had presented the truth. Lila, in turn, reassured her mother, explaining that they had acted carefully and thoughtfully, and that they had done everything possible to protect themselves. Their bond had strengthened, and they both understood the power of preparation, courage, and careful planning. Lila continued to document every step of the events, ensuring that a record existed in case any further attempts were made to manipulate the situation. Maria supported her, grateful for the meticulous attention and foresight her daughter had shown. They had faced the threat together, using intelligence, courage, and trust to overcome a dangerous challenge. The experience had taught them both valuable lessons about resilience, the importance of knowledge, and the strength found in family. As the days passed, the atmosphere in the town shifted slightly. The homeowners spoke of the events, praising Lila's intelligence and Maria's integrity. The staff members were reassured and proud to have been part of a situation where truth and careful reasoning had won out. The judge, though still influential, could not ignore the exposure of his plan. His reputation had taken a subtle but significant hit, and the people around him began to notice that his authority was not absolute. Maria felt a deep sense of accomplishment and relief. The simple maid had not only survived a dangerous situation but had done so with dignity and honesty. Her daughter had grown in ways that were extraordinary, proving that intelligence, courage, and preparation could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Together, they had faced a powerful adversary and emerged with truth and justice on their side. The story of this confrontation became a quiet inspiration in their town. It was a reminder that even in the presence of power and manipulation, knowledge, careful preparation, and bravery could make a difference. Maria and Lila had shown that the bond between parent and child, combined with intelligence and courage, was a force that could withstand threats and injustice. They had proven that truth, when carefully defended, could prevail against deception and power. After the confrontation with the judge, life slowly began to return to normal for Maria and her children. The fear and tension that had gripped their household gradually eased, replaced by a sense of relief and quiet satisfaction. Maria could finally breathe, knowing that her honesty had been recognized and that the danger posed by the judge had been exposed. Lila, though still young, had proven herself capable of navigating complex situations with intelligence and courage. The homeowners took active steps to ensure that Maria's reputation remained intact. They spoke to their neighbors, cleared any lingering doubts, and praised Maria's integrity. Their statements, combined with Lila's evidence and careful reasoning, made it clear to everyone in town that Maria had been falsely accused. Slowly, whispers of doubt and suspicion were replaced with admiration and respect. People began to see the maid not just as a hard-working woman, but as someone who had endured a serious challenge with dignity and honesty. Lila continued to document every detail of what had happened. She wanted to ensure that the truth would be remembered and that no further attempts could be made to harm her family. She organized all evidence, witness statements, and timelines meticulously. Even the smallest detail was recorded. Her dedication and thoroughness impressed the adults around her, who often commented on her maturity and intelligence. Maria watched with pride, realizing that her daughter had grown through the ordeal in ways that were extraordinary. Word of the events reached others in the community. People were amazed that a young girl had successfully defended her mother against someone with authority and influence. Lila's actions became a quiet source of inspiration, showing that knowledge, preparation, and courage could protect even the most vulnerable. Maria felt a mix of relief and pride, knowing that her family's story could help others understand the value of honesty and intelligence. The judge, meanwhile, had to face the consequences of his actions. His attempts to manipulate and frame Maria had been exposed, and his credibility suffered. People who had once respected him began to question his decisions, his integrity, and his sense of justice. The power he had relied on to intimidate others was no longer sufficient to hide his misdeeds. Though he remained in his position, his authority was diminished, and he became more cautious in his dealings. Lila had shown that even those in positions of power could be held accountable when confronted with truth and careful reasoning. Maria's children returned to their daily routines with a renewed sense of security. Lila continued to excel in her studies, her experiences strengthening her understanding of law and justice. Her younger brother observed and learned from her, inspired by her focus, courage, and intelligence. Maria encouraged both children to continue learning, to remain curious, and to understand that knowledge was a form of protection and empowerment. She knew that the lessons they had learned during this challenge would serve them for the rest of their lives. At home, Maria and Lila shared moments of quiet reflection. They talked about the past events, discussing how courage, honesty, and careful preparation had allowed them to overcome adversity. Maria expressed her pride and gratitude for Lila's wisdom and bravery, while Lila reminded her mother of the power that comes from knowing the truth and presenting it clearly. Their bond had strengthened, and both understood the importance of supporting one another through challenges. The experience had also taught Maria a valuable lesson about the world. She realized that while honesty and hard work were essential, they were not always enough on their own. Knowledge, preparation, and the ability to think strategically were equally important. She began to encourage her children to pursue education and develop skills that would allow them to face challenges with confidence. Maria understood that intelligence and courage could level the playing field, even in a world where power and influence often dominated. Lila's reputation grew quietly within the town. Teachers, neighbors, and community members spoke of her sharp mind and ability to handle complex situations. She was no longer just a young student. She had become a symbol of intelligence, bravery, and the potential to challenge injustice. Her actions inspired others to recognize that even those without wealth or status could make a difference when armed with knowledge and determination. Maria, too, gained recognition, not for wealth or social standing, but for her unwavering honesty and integrity. People admired her resilience and her ability to remain composed under pressure. She became a quiet example in the community, showing that hard work, honesty, and courage could earn respect even in the face of powerful adversaries. Her story, intertwined with her daughter's brilliance, became a testament to the strength of family and the importance of standing up for what is right. The judge, aware of the scrutiny he faced, became more cautious in his actions. He learned that power alone was not enough to control every situation. The experience served as a reminder that truth, intelligence, and courage could expose deception and manipulation, regardless of rank or authority. Maria and Lila had proven that even the seemingly powerless could challenge those in positions of influence when armed with knowledge and careful planning. In the months that followed, life returned to a more peaceful rhythm. Maria continued her work with renewed confidence, knowing that her integrity had been recognized and defended. Lila pursued her studies with even greater determination, inspired by the difference she had made. Her younger brother continued to learn from his sister, absorbing lessons about observation, reasoning, and courage. The family remained close-knit, strengthened by the trials they had faced and the triumphs they had achieved. Maria often reflected on the events with gratitude. She realized that the fear and uncertainty they had experienced had also revealed their inner strength. Lila's abilities had protected them, but Maria's unwavering honesty and love had been the foundation. Together, they had faced a powerful adversary and emerged victorious, proving that courage, intelligence, and integrity could overcome deception and manipulation. The story of Maria and Lila became a quiet legend in their town, shared as an example of resilience, justice, and the power of knowledge. It was a reminder that even those who seem powerless could make a difference when armed with preparation, intelligence, and courage. The mother and daughter had faced a challenge that could have destroyed them, yet they had turned it into an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of family, truth, and perseverance. In the end, Maria and Lila knew that life would continue to present challenges, but they were prepared. They had learned that courage, honesty, and careful planning could protect them and guide them through difficulties. Their bond was stronger than ever, and their experiences had instilled a deep understanding of justice, strategy, and the power of intelligence. They had faced deception and power and had triumphed, leaving them ready to face whatever the future might hold with confidence and hope. Maria and Lila's story ended not just with the defeat of the judge's scheme, but with a lasting lesson for their community. It showed that the combination of love, intelligence, preparation, and honesty could overcome even the most calculated attempts at injustice. Their lives, though simple in many ways, had become extraordinary through courage and wisdom, and the lessons they learned would echo in their hearts forever. The simple maid and her prodigious daughter had proven that truth and justice could prevail, and in doing so, they inspired others to believe in the power of honesty, intelligence, and family.